So I actually wasn't going to film this, but I feel like it's probably a pretty cool moment because we're gonna have a first startup here since we've installed the intake manifold and port injection and all that stuff. However, obviously port injection isn't gonna be running right now. These injectors are simply just off for the time being until we get reflex installed, which is going to happen here soon, probably in the next couple of days. But right now I'm just going through the bleed procedure. We drained pretty much all of the coolant out of this car. It was sitting for multiple days with you know, all of the coolant hoses off. This thing is empty. So I've been going through the entire bleed procedure, which is actually pretty easy. You just fill up the coolant reservoir and then you hop in the car, turn it into accessory mode, turn the heat all the way up, turn the fan all the way down, hold your foot on the accelerator pedal for 10 seconds, and then you're going to start hearing the water pump do its thing. It's going to start flushing coolant throughout the system. This car right now, adding on the auxiliary radiator, it's going to take a little bit more coolant. So I've had to do this procedure a couple of times now because every time that I check the reservoir after the procedure, it's empty. So we have to keep filling it up with a couple of liters every single time, let it just go through its process. We'll probably have to do it, I'd say 1 or 2 more times until that tank fills up to where we like it. I haven't heard this car with the exhaust connected and everything. Now that we have the mid pipe connected to the rear section, I actually haven't even heard how it sounds. So that'll be fun, and hopefully we don't run into any issues. Then we also need to fill up our power steering reservoir. There's also a little bleed procedure for that, where basically you fill it up, you go full lock left, full lock right, and you just keep doing that, add it in, full lock left, full lock right. And so yeah, that's the plan for today. Hopefully nothing goes wrong, but so far so good. There's no obvious leaks in any of the hoses, which is a great sign, and yeah, everything seems to be working great. So I think it just went through a bleed procedure. Let's go ahead and turn the car off. If you guys are doing this, you probably just want to put it on like a battery tenor or something, but let's go ahead and turn it off for now. And then what we'll do is we'll check the level in the reservoir. Getting close. It's a little bit different with this expansion tank. Yeah, so you can tell right there, there's nothing in there. I mean, this tank is actually bone dry. So we're gonna go ahead and fill this reservoir back up and go through the bleed procedure again, and I'll show you guys how to do it this time. So what you wanna do is when you get BMW coolant, you're gonna need to mix it 50% distilled water, 50% coolant. And you basically just keep going through this process until the reservoir is holding coolant. And on this expansion tank from Turner, you just fill it up to the cast mark. We'll go a little bit higher because it's for sure gonna just keep drinking more of it. And so we'll throw the cap back on here. Then we'll just hop in the car, put the car into accessory mode, power on just like that. And then we're going to make sure that the heat is all the way up and the fan is all the way down. Hold for 10 seconds, and there it goes. I just started hearing the water pump. And yeah, that's basically the process. So it takes about 8 to 10 minutes for it to go through this bleed procedure. But obviously now that we have this auxiliary radiator over here, you'd have to imagine there's probably even more coolant that you need to put in. Not by much, but a little bit. All right, we are on what I believe is to be the last bleed through. The last one that we just did was almost full. So we're gonna do one more. One thing I did want to mention to you guys is that I had a little issue with my port injection rail. Well, it wasn't so much the rail, it was actually these little mounts right here. So when I first connected everything, I hooked the battery back up, I noticed that we were leaking out of injector one. This thing was just like pissing fuel. I'm like, okay, well, I probably ripped an O-ring or something stupid like that. I ripped off the fuel rail, checked out the O-ring, and it looked fine. So I was kind of confused as to why that was happening. So I started just looking everything over and seeing what it could possibly be, and I noticed that every time that I tightened down these little mounts, the actual rail would seem to move out a little too far. Basically, long story short, the holes that were pre-drilled in these little mounts were off just enough to actually push the rail out when you would tighten these down. So what I had to do that actually fixed mine is obviously disconnected the battery so no more fuel was coming through, and then I re-drilled these little mounts that hold the port injection rail. I basically just re-drilled them inwards a little bit to give me more flexibility when I tightened them down. After I did that, everything was good and we have no more leaks. So if you guys have port injection in your car and you notice that one of your injectors is leaking and you notice the actual rail is being pushed a little bit, that's probably why. It's probably those mounts. So take a look at that. But other than that, yeah, things are going well with this setup so far. And obviously we don't have anything running yet, but I think we're gonna be good here in a minute. So we'll pick back up once this goes through the final bleed through, and then hopefully we can get a startup. I don't know, guys. guys, I'm pretty undecided on this one. This is the anniversary logo from BMW. So I think what I'm going to do is have my painting guys shadow line black out the edge there on this one. And we might rock it. We might rock it on the oneer, dude. I don't know. It might look cool. Something different, you know? It's first startup time. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit nervous. I'm a little bit nervous. Oh, God. Pray for me. Pray for me. Oh, I've got a problem. It's not a giant problem, but it's a problem. Basically what we have happening is, you guys saw in the manifold video, I added in that extra line, that hard line that goes across from the left side of the radiator over to the right side to plumb into our auxiliary radiator. Now that is a stock line on a 335 IS and a 1M. Those are the two that share that. On this setup, it's so tight. Like, there's no room. Currently, that new line, that new hard line that I put in is rubbing up against the harmonic balancer and crank pulley. Don't want anything rubbing on that. So this big ass pulley right here is going to be that crankshaft balance pulley. And then right there is that hard line right next to it. That hard line, it wasn't originally touching it when I put all this in. If it was touching it, I wouldn't have started the car. But it moved. As soon as I started the car, everything moved towards the balancer and then just started getting eaten away. You can see it's starting to eat away on the corner there. So if I had kept running it, it would have eaten all the way through it and then I would have spilled out coolant. It only fits in there one way. So like, this is definitely the way that it goes, but who knows? Maybe it's just like a little bit different on the 335 IS and the 1M, but on this car, for whatever reason, it's just not fitting the way I want it to. The good thing is though, you know, we started the car up, it sounded good. Like, I heard from the back, it sounded great and there was nothing leaking. So that's awesome. So, yeah, I'm gonna pull the fan back out. Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I just popped the fan out so you guys could see. It's really only right here where it's rubbing the most, but it would have eaten through that eventually. I've been fighting this thing constantly as far as like fitment's concerned. It's so difficult to get the giant fan in here without having to like push this thing out. I remembered when I was putting in the fan, and this area over here tends to be what pushes everything out. And you'll even notice these little holes right here. These holes, they're meant for this new line that we put in that has these little plastic clips on it to mount up to it. So I'm like, it's gotta work. So what I did was, I just noticed that this edge over here, it had like a very big protruding piece of plastic. I just cut it all off. And that was really what was giving me a lot of hassle when putting it in. And I think that that was pushing it back a lot too. So I just chopped that off. I'm gonna work on putting the fan back in and see if I can get more clearance. I think I got it. I spent the last 3 hours shaving the fan a little bit and moving things around. I think I got it. Take two, take two. I think we're good. The clutch is super loud. These twin discs are just freaking loud, but she's good. Nothing's rubbing. I moved everything around. Injectors are obviously louder than hell. Pretty normal. I don't have any fuel leaks. I checked under here. I didn't see anything weird. No fuel leaks under there. It all sounds good. These clutches, man, these twin disc clutches are so loud. Holy shit. We're back in action, boys and girls. Did it. Exhaust sounds good. Let's go. No errors on the dash, nothing. Like, it's freaking mint, dude. Everything's perfect. So what I ended up doing, you guys, in order to make it fit on mine, and mine is a little bit of a Frankenstein, so I can't promise that it's gonna be the same for anyone else's, but these two little Allen head plastic bolts right here, when you loosen those up, you can move the radiator forward and back. The radiator I have is an aftermarket radiator. It's thick as fuck. That thick radiator, pushing the fan against all of those new lines that we have ran, is just pushing it closer towards the engine, and then rubbing on that pulley. So what I ended up doing was a couple of things. I loosened those two plastic bolts up to move the radiator as far as I could forward. I just left them out for while I was fitting things. Did that, and yeah, dude, it fit perfectly. It just took a lot. I probably pulled the fan and put it back in like 12 times and just shaved a little bit of stuff off the back. So shaving that fan and then moving stuff around a little bit to make it work, yeah, that fixed it, dude. And we got started up and it sounds good. Sounds really good, and there's no errors or anything on the dash. Like, yes, That is what we needed. You just never know what can happen. And you know, if you've been a part of this channel long enough, you know that I have experienced that worst case scenario and the worst sound. So you just never know what can happen. Yeah, fuck yeah, dude. So hyped. So hyped that worked out. All right, you guys, so that is going to be it for today's video. What a freaking journey it has been so far with this little 135, but I'm having a blast. This week, I'm going to try and get the Reflex installed this week. I'm learning how to do that. I've never done it before, but I'm going to figure it out. Kind of have an idea of how it works. And then I'm also going to do my Precision Raceworks coil pack upgrade. I ended up going with the black ones. I think this is going to look cool. They only have blue or black. And blue would just look weird, I think, in this engine base. So black it is. So we're gonna do that. And then, yeah, man, we just keep moving along. We just keep moving along. And then I think at that point, we're probably just gonna chill until my flares get here, my rear flares, to where we can start finish up the body and take this thing into the paint booth and spray it and get this fucking car done, man. The other thing that I'm looking at are the headlights. Like, I know a lot of you guys were like, well, like, leave these headlights. Oh man, I'm pretty much sold on the OEM headlights. I'm just having a really hard time finding a clean set. And new from the dealership, they are $2,000 for the set. Don't know if I can justify $2,000 for some headlights, but I really want the OEM headlights, and I really want a clean set of like LCI OEM headlights. So if it comes down to it, I'll just fucking eat it and just do the brand new ones for $2,000. I don't want to, but at the end of the day, just trying to make this build like beyond anything I've done before. So I'm supposed to have my flares now. It's officially been 3 months since I ordered them from Jay Meadows. I'll be honest, man, this guy's not easy to get a hold of. I've heard from a lot of people that he's sort of like ducks people and doesn't really get back to you, and they just kind of fucking show up when they show up. Like, we've got time to make alternate decisions if we want to go OEM with the quarters, but I still don't know if that's the way to go. I don't know. Anyways, today was a W. Fuck yeah, super excited. We got the car running, sounds good. But I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you in the next one.